Hey guys, it's been a while. We're back with, well, we're not on 31 Days of Halloween anymore, so we gotta switch it up a little bit. And excuse me because I am sick. If I seem a little off, that's what that is. We have something real interesting today because it's my favorite movies. This video is what I would consider a good, this honestly should have been my first video because it really gives you an idea of the kind of movies that I like, and yeah. This is essentially just going to be a little top 10, but before we get to the top 10, I have some honorable mentions because some of these were real tough to not have in my top 10, so I figure I'll at least say them. There's two of these that are on here specifically because I've only seen them the one time, and I like to give things a little more room to breathe before I actually consider them like an all-time favorite. And so that would be both. See, even as I said that, I was thinking of other things, or whatever, it doesn't matter. So first up, I would say it's actually two movies from this year. I'm not sure where they fall in my favorites, but I'm pretty sure they're up there. And that would be Halloween 18 and Hereditary. I'm not sure if anyone else really agrees with this sentiment, but both of these movies, right after seeing them, I was like, oh, yep, those are in my top 20. Maybe I should have done a top 20. Oh well, made a little bit of a mistake. Whatever. The other ones we have The Fog, original of course, Fright Night, also original, and Rosemary's Baby. Those are 5 movies that they're, depending on the time that you ask me, any of those could have been in my top 10. So we got to get into the actual top 10. That's the important part. So first movie up, at number 10, The Exorcist. Oh, I fucking love this movie. I'm not religious at all, but I also know how Catholics react to this movie, which I think entertains me even more. But the whole concept of the film is so good. The possession aspect is so well handled. This is the penultimate possession movie. There's the ultimate possession movie, not pen. Fuck that up. Oh well. This is the ultimate possession movie. I love it. It's so good. Regan going down the stairs. There's so many things with Regan. Which, by the way, I had no idea until recently that apparently Regan didn't, or Linda Blair didn't even play half of that role. It was mostly a stunt lady. That's good to know. I had no idea. I had so much I had so much respect for her for certain things that she had supposedly done, but then yeah, find out that most of the stuff that I had respect for she wasn't the one to do. So that was an interesting little fact that I found out about it. And I really love the performances, especially from the two priests. It's just, I don't know, something about them. It's a role that you don't usually see priests in. I don't know, they're just not the stereotypical priests that exercise, which has practically become a subgenre of its own. But yeah, I just love this movie. I'm not wanting to focus too much on each individual one because I know that I will go crazy if I do. So we'll try to keep each one of these movies short and sweet. Number 9 on the list is actually Black Christmas, and I'm not sure if anyone else agrees that this, despite the fact that this movie is as good as it is, I think that it's one of those movies that takes multiple viewings. So when I saw it for the first time, I was like, this one's, it's alright, it's a little slow though, it takes a while for everything to happen. I think it was either the second or the third viewing that everything just clicked with me, where I was just like, oh my god, this movie is fucking perfect. I love it. Love it. From the get-go, it's one of those films that I'm upset that it's a holiday movie because I'd like to watch it year-round. But you can't. It's so Christmassy. It's damn near impossible. But I think that also the characters, I'm such a character person, and I just love the characters in this movie. They're so much more dimensional than we see in slasher films after Black Christmas and Halloween. So getting such texture to them, I don't know. It's just been nice. It's nice. And I love how brutal some of the kills are, because even though a lot of the stuff is not really shown on screen, it's almost worse that it's not, some of the stuff isn't shown on screen. Particularly Margot Kidder's death. Ooh, it's fucking brutal. So brutal. Another aspect that I really love about this movie is that I think Peeping Tom was the first, but this is another that follows the slasher genre, the slasher tropes, that actually has the killer POV, which I love. Obviously, we see later in Halloween, and I don't know, I just love it works so well in this film. I really wish that this got more like praise than it does. From obviously like main hardcore horror people love it, but I feel like casuals don't really know about this movie, or maybe have heard of it but just haven't gone down that amazing hole. But yeah, everything about Black Christmas is just fantastic. Next up we have for number 8, this is a movie that honestly may have been the number 1 on my list, especially in high school, because there are a few, this is probably the film on this list that's affected me the most in terms of my own writing style and just things that I enjoy, and that would be Wes Craven's Scream. This movie, there's so many things about it that nowadays some of the stuff seems tried and blah blah blah, they're circumventing these horror tropes, but back then, the meta aspect and the dialogue are two things that I've carried with me with everything. I have a hard time not being somewhat meta in the stuff I do, because that's just, to me, meta is real life. That's calling out stuff, that's just real life. So that's why I've enjoyed Scream, and yeah, it's just so fucking good. Gotta love some Wes Craven. Next up, and this is one that I already had one of his movies in the honorable mentions, but you're gonna see him pop up again on this list because John Carpenter, god damn does he make some good movies. But for number 7 on our list, that goes to The Thing. Oh, I love this movie. I love it. It's one of those films that I only watch when it's like cold out or when there's snow on the ground, just because it gets me even more like in the film. So if you haven't done that, like next time it snows, throw on The Thing, because it's just perfect. Every snow day in high school, I would end up watching this movie. It's just so good, so good. The holy grail with this film is the effects. The practical effects are through the roof. But you know what else is a holy grail? Kurt Russell's beard in this movie. Holy shit, that's a legend of its own. There's not even much else to say other than fucking epic. Now, next on the list we have, this is honestly like a placeholder for any of the films in this, honestly the trilogy. There's other films that come after, but talking about Dawn of the Dead. And I love Day of the Dead, I love Night of the Living Dead, and honestly Day of the Dead is usually my favorite, followed by Night, but lately Dawn has just been resonating with me. I love it. The whole style of it's so good. And like obviously there's so much social commentary, but I just love the look of it. It's so 70s. There's so much to enjoy. Obviously there's so many different versions of this film, so I'm not sure. There's people that really do prefer the director's cut, but I think the director's cut kind of like slogs a little bit, but regular theatrical version, which is technically the director's cut, it's fantastic. It's so fucking cool. It moves at a really good pace, and I don't know, it's the way to watch the film. If you want something like really quick and punchy, watch the European version, which is like the full Goblin score. And then if you after seeing the movie want more of the characters and more of the scenario, that's when I think you should watch the director's cut, because otherwise it's just a lot of stuff that you don't really need that kind of like disrupts the flow of the film. Next up for number 5, we have An American Werewolf in London. This movie, it's similar to Scream in that, like, the experience for me, and that it's really the characters and the dialogue that really just resonated with me, and it's just these people feel like real life people, which isn't always the case in horror movies. Sometimes horror movies lean a little too far into the trope aspect, which it's honestly not a bad thing. I love slashers, and the slashers are built on tropes, but there's something with it that just transcends the standard character cliches. Everyone just, they feel real. Can't even talk about this movie without talking about the werewolf transformation. It's absolutely incredible, and this, as well as The Thing, are both proof positive as to why practical effects are the way to go. All these years later, they look amazing. Absolutely amazing. I should say, all of these movies, they're very standard in terms of being on a top 10 list. So I would hope that you've seen all of these. But if you haven't, please go see them immediately. I mean, stop this video right now and go watch these films, because they are just fucking incredible. Speaking of fucking incredible, this is a movie that number 4, that I'm not usually, I'll be like, that's not horror. I'm weird with my horrors and my thrillers. But I've been watching some haunted house things lately where I just feel like this belongs in it. Because this is essentially a haunted house film in space. And I'm, of course, talking about Alien. This movie just, from start to finish, is a haunted house tale. Everything about it, you're trying to escape from this house that you can't escape because there's some kind of being that's fucking shit up. And unfortunately here, it's an alien and you're in space. So you can't really go into the vacuum of space. Sigourney Weaver just kills it in this role. She does so good every single second she's on screen. The character of Ellen Ripley has been so established in horror and in sci-fi that you probably know, even if you haven't seen the film, that you recognize her. So watching it nowadays, it would kind of be hard to get the same reaction, but they did such a good job with not letting you know who's going to be the actual lead, because it seems like it's going to be Dallas for a very long time. Then Ellen slowly starts doing, it's so weird calling her Ellen Ripley. She goes on this big little arc. Yeah. She goes on a big arc. So yeah, there's just a lot with that I always have loved, and it's incredible. But again, maybe this won't be on my top 10 list just because I won't consider it a horror next year. Who knows? I don't consider Jaws horror yet. It all depends. Some people do. I do on the wrong day. This is the right day though, and I don't consider it horror. So that's why it's not on this list. Next up, we have at number 3, another Wes Craven classic, and that would be A Nightmare on Elm Street. I think the reason that I love this movie so much is that it's such a journey film. Like, you're just going on a journey with these characters, specifically Nancy. And I love watching this movie late at night, a little tired, so then you're like, especially when you're like trying to fight the tired, where it's like almost getting to blend realities a little bit. You're like, I can't go to sleep. I just love so many elements in it. I think my favorite scene is probably Tina's second nightmare, the one where she's murdered in the bed. Everything about it. Freddy's outstretched arms, you have the him throwing like pebbles at the window, him popping out from behind the tree, and then obviously the whole bed death is just insane. So that scene is probably my favorite of anything that is in any Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Freddy's my guy. I love Freddy. Freddy was always the horror villain that I enjoyed the most. I know it's always between like Michael, Freddy, Jason. I love them all. Freddy's always been my guy. I love his sadistic, wisecracking sense of humor. It's just has always tickled me. So this movie is one that was already proven by the remake that just because you have a great concept doesn't a good movie make. But this film takes its amazing concept and just gives you an incredible film. Incredible. For number 2, we've got a film that I've actually, because of the release of the newest one, I watched this quite a few times this month. Probably like 4 or 5 times in total. So I definitely got it I guess it was October I got it in. Oh well. Of course, I'm talking about John Carpenter's Halloween. This film, like the cinematography and look of the film, is probably my favorite in any film ever. Ever. I love how these movies look. But it's something with those cameras specifically and how they're capturing the film that, maybe it's just because they're not low light. Can't even begin to wonder. But I love the look of the movie so much, and this is the Michael that we always wanted. Like, because, obviously it was the first one, but seeing the newest one, it just solidified how much I enjoy the Michael in this film, because it's the same Michael it's in Halloween 2018. He's playful, he's evil, but he still likes to fuck with people, and I feel like that's an element that kind of gets lost in some of the sequels, so there's just a lot in the original to love, especially the characters. The characters are so good. You have, Annie, Linda, and Lori they're the perfect babysitters. That's all. Especially the Lori character. If you don't appreciate her from watching this, you'll really appreciate her if you watch the Rob Zombie remake, because Lori in that is just a dog shit character. Dog shit person, just dog shit. so bad. It just makes you appreciate the original Laurie character so much more. And yeah, just so fucking good. Next up for number 1, we have one that it was my favorite before moving to Colorado, and then it even being around the actual hotel that influenced Stephen King's story has, I think, increased it even more for me. And that would be Stephen King's The Shining. And I say Stephen King's, but I should say Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, because Stephen King fucking hates this movie. I don't understand it. It's amazing. From start to finish, this film is fucking incredible. And so the fact that someone doesn't like it, it's mind-blowing to me. But I also get him being the person that created it. He probably just has a very different idea as to what it should have been, because I haven't even made it through all the Steven Weber version, because it was just so fucking boring and just couldn't get through it. It was very slow and just not my kind of movie. It's a TV movie, but still. So I get why he would not like it, but just in that, the whole creator aspect, otherwise the movie's fucking fantastic. And another point that I should make, my favorite horror film, The Shining, I say that about it's hard to say. So this is the TV edit is technically my favorite, because Stanley Kubrick, when he released the film, he actually cut it like within, I believe it was the weekend that it came out. He just didn't like the certain supernatural scenes, so he cut it. It was like 25 minutes that he cut out. So then that was the theatrical version. Then later on, when on DVD, and I didn't remember Laserdisc, but I know on DVD for sure, they released the director's cut, which then re-added all that footage, which unfortunately, the director's cut is not really the director's cut. The director's cut is the TV version, which it's not available many places. As far as I know, there's like one region 2, I think. It has like, it's black and it has just a picture of the door with red rum on it. That version is the TV version, but I think it's the only one that's available on Blu-ray. Is that. Usually it's the director's cut, which again, it's just not as good as the normal version. It has a lot more supernatural elements, and the pacing is just not as good. The actual TV version is just leagues and leagues ahead of the others. So yeah, you should definitely, if you've only seen The Shining and you're like, yeah, it was fine, it was good, that's because you saw the longer version, which isn't as tight. Watch the TV edit. There's so many little things to keep out for. There's a reason that this film has been dissected as much as it has. And yeah, it's just fucking incredible. But yeah, that's all. That's really it for all of these movies. I hope that you feel a little more well acquainted with my views, because again, these are just my favorites. There's some I like more than others. There's some that I used to not like, and there's some that I used to like that are way down on my list. So that's just the nature of liking and disliking things. So I don't really know what the video is going to be next week, so I'm not going to say every time as to what it's going to be, just in case I throw a curveball, because who knows when I'm going to get sick and I need some shit in the backlog. So I'll see you guys next week.
Hey, you can feel free to hit that subscribe button below and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd. I am at Zombie Victim on all of them. Thanks.